Here with Tim Bontemps, who will either wisely co-sign my NBA predictions or else make a foolhardy attempt to argue. Fact number one, KD will be a Warrior next season. I'll tell you why. When you think about teams where he would maybe want to go, who have the assets to get him and still be great, they're probably at the top of the list. Tim, what do you think?
Kevin Durant left the Warriors to come to the Nets because he was done being a Golden State Warrior. I do not see the Golden State Warriors trading for him now, coming off a championship and trading all the young guys they're excited to get. I think it's fiction.
Fact number two, Kyrie will be a Laker next season. Right or wrong?
I'm going to say fiction on that as well for sort of the same reason we just talked about. I don't see a trade right now for Kevin Durant. And I think because as long as Kevin Durant is on the Brooklyn Nets, I think Kyrie Irving is going to be too, because that is their best chance to have Kevin Durant happy and wanting to be on the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay, now look, I admit with those facts, I was kind of hoping, right? Like I want some excitement here.
Sure.
I think you'll agree with fact number three. Donovan Mitchell will be a Knick next season.
I certainly think that's a fact. Donovan Mitchell is a guy that obviously would love to be in New York. He's from here. His dad works for the Mets. All the stories about that. And look, the Knicks need a star. To get multiple stars, need to get one star. Donovan Mitchell will be the first lead guard that's an all-star for the Knicks since Mark Jackson in 1989. You could argue he's the best Knicks lead guard since Walt Frazier in the 70s.
Yeah, you could have. Longtime agent Thad Boucher. Did I say that right, Tim Bontemps? The Fouché have parted ways. In a statement to ESPN, Fouché cited irreconcilable differences and suggested that there was no longer full alignment with Westbrook about whether the former MVP should remain with the Lakers. As part of a statement to ESPN, Fouché said, did I say that right, Tim?
You did that time.
Now, with the possibility of a fourth trade in 4 years, the marketplace is telling the Lakers they must add additional value with Russell in any trade scenario. And even then, such a trade may require Russell to immediately move on from the new team via buyout. My belief is that this type of transaction only serves to diminish Russell's value, and his best option is to stay with the Lakers, embrace the starting role and support that Darvin Ham publicly offered. Unfortunately, irreconcilable differences exist as to his best pathway forward, and we are no longer working together. He'd mentioned before that quote that, hey, until now, he always got a boatload in return, and now the value's different. Tim, what do you make of Russell Westbrook's situation in LA at the moment?
Well, look, obviously situations with agents and players happen all the time. I mean, it's the same in boxing, right? You know that. There's all sorts of promoter, fighter issues all the time. The bigger thing here is Russell Westbrook is not the player he once was, and that has caused a series of issues over the past few years where he is now on his fourth team in 4 years, and there's been a lot of talk this offseason about how he could potentially be on a fifth team in 5 years. And I think for me, the question for Russell Westbrook between now and the start of this season, presuming he's on the Los Angeles Lakers, which I think at this point it seems likely he will be, or at least will be on the roster, is he going to be able to get himself into a different mindset and play a different role on this team? Because what we saw last year was the role he tried to play last year and the one he's played in the past is not going to work. So to me, it's either, is he going to continue trying to do that? Or, as in his conversation with Darvin Ham this offseason, when he's been communicative with him so far, is he going to try to change his game and play a little differently and try to fit in better? Because if he can, maybe there's a way to make this work. If he can't, we're going to see a replay of last year, and that was not good.
Okay, the eyeball test for me also says he's not the same as he used to be, although he was in a terrible situation. Westbrook's really like, in a way, a point center, because his offense comes from getting to the paint, just doesn't post up.
That's why the fit with LeBron was terrible from the beginning.
And there were no shooters on the team. On the other hand, when you do a deeper dive into the underlying stats, he's the same guy as always. So here's the two-part question for you, Tim. Number one, is he in fact not as good as he used to be? When you do the deeper dive and it's like, oh, it's just a different situation. And number two, if he's not in fact that same player, what's changed? He still looks very fast. He was never a very good shooter. Is he the same? And if not, what has changed?
Well, let's start with the second part, because that's a little easier. He's not the same shooter he used to be. He was never a great shooter, but he used to be pretty good at pull-up jump shots. He used to be a very good foul shooter. That's all gone away now, right?
But that would seem to be a technique issue, not a talent issue.
Sometimes we see this throughout guys' careers. They get older. Their free throw shooting in particular tends to wane. You know, Tim Duncan, that happened with him. LeBron has had issues at times with his free throw shooting. This isn't an uncommon thing. Right. But the bigger thing is Westbrook is even more careless with the ball now than he used to be, right? He throws the ball all over the place. So you have a ton of turnovers, less shooting, and his defense has never been a strong suit, frankly, and especially isn't now. You put all that together, that's not a very useful player in a lot of situations. Now, where Russell Westbrook can be effective is like where he was in Washington 2 years ago, when he's on a team that's trying to be, say, the 8th seed in the East, and he can have the ball in his hands all the time, and you sort of conform the team around him. We saw when he went to Houston, they reformed the team around him. With LeBron James, you're not going to reform the team around Russell Westbrook. He's off to the side. He's not effective.
Yeah, too bad the Knicks aren't there to play as a sucker right now for the Lakers. Usually they are. That's pretty. It was explained how we could get better and what the market value was for certain players. I told Daryl to improve the roster, sign who we needed to sign, and give me whatever is left over. This is how bad I want to win. I want to compete for a championship. That's all that matters to me. At this stage, I'm willing to take less to put us in a position to accomplish that. Big Perk back with me, and Tim Bontemps. Perk, what does this say about James Harden?
It says a lot. It says that he's finally losing himself in the team. And I'd rather this summertime James Harden than the past summertime James Harden. Look, he's thinking about basketball right now. Like he wasn't thinking about basketball last year around this time. The fact that he took a pay cut and the fact that they were able to go out and get P.J. Tucker and Daniel House, 3D and D guys to defend the wing position, which is, by the way, the most important position in the NBA. I'm all in for this version of James Harden. He's been working out. He's been in the gym. I'm around here in Houston hearing nothing but great things. I'm ready to see him have a bounce-back season. I think it's going to be phenomenal with him and Joel Embiid. I'm ready for their top 3 team in the Eastern Conference right now.
Tim, on the other hand, I think House is a talented and effective player, and everyone knows P.J. Tucker is real good, and for the playoffs, that's a guy you want. So it's really good for the Sixers. These are the kind of underrated moves that make a team go from, second tier to first tier.
Yep.
On the other hand, are you buying what Harden's selling? Like, what was his marketplace anyway? Where was he going to find a better situation than he has in Philly right now?
Well, look, I think to Perk's point, actions speak louder than words, right? And let's see what James Harden looks like when he gets to training camp. Let's see what James Harden looks like when it gets to December and January. Is he going to be able to get back to being the guy that when he got to Brooklyn was one of the 5 best players in the league the first 2 months he was there before he hurt his hamstring?
The best player in the league when he first got to Brooklyn.
He might have been. Or is he going to be the guy that he was really for the most part of the last calendar year, which is a really good player, still a top 25, 30-ish player,
not a superstar,
but not a guy that you're building your team around and looks like a guy who could be an MVP candidate. If he's the former, the Sixers have a chance to win a title.
That's right.
If he's the latter, they're what they were last year, which is a very good team, but not good enough to win.
That's the point, Perk. What Tim just said to me, like, okay, Harden, I hear you. You're making all these sacrifices for the team. But even if you can't be what Tim just described, you still are going to have to hit big shots in the playoffs. Doesn't this put more pressure on him to do that finally?
No, because who have you been seeing in those workout videos with James Harden besides Sam Cassell? The young fella, Maxey, meaning that James Harden is taking him under his wings. Meaning next year when he comes back, he's going to be a better version of himself. Look, James Harden has already made the transition of being going from being the leading scorer to one of the best facilitators. He averaged 10.5 assists last year with 21 points a game. Now, can he up that and up his efficiency? Absolutely. And I think with a summer off and hard work in training like he's been doing, he's going to come back a better James Harden, which is going to make Philly a better team and, like Tim said, a contender and possibly bring home the championship.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Maxey he's actually an underrated player. He got better and better as the season went on. He's very young. He's a chance to be, the Sixers need this guy and that guy. Maybe they have him already in Maxey. But to your point, Tim, whether or not he's a superstar, James Harden has spent a career being less than his best self in the playoffs. I used to say this about Steph Curry in the finals. Guess what he just did? Shut me up. He finally did it. He came through in the biggest way on the biggest stage in ways he hadn't before.
Yep.
Doesn't Harden need to do that still?
Well, I mean, look, I think, as I said before, for the Sixers to have a chance to win a championship, he's got to be that player again. If he's just a very good player.
But a very good player can be, as long as he's a clutch player, then he maybe doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 for him. He can be an 8 or a 9, but be a 10 when it matters most.
I mean, sure, obviously it would help if he hit some huge shots in the playoffs. But I think even if he doesn't hit huge shots in the playoffs, if the Sixers win a championship and he's just good, or he's just good in clutch moments, that'll be fine.
Sure.
So to me, it really just comes back to just how good is he going to be able to get to? Is he going to be able to get back to being that guy who had the burst to get to the rim, to get by people, to be explosive and make explosive plays? He did not have that at any point last season. No matter what he's saying now, if he doesn't get back to that guy again, this team's ceiling, even with these additions, is a lot lower than people think.
Perk, I would hate for this dude to end his career without getting that done. Yeah.
Me too, Max and Tim. I didn't know it was wrinkled shirt day. Next time, give me the reminder.
My wrinkled shirt.
I mean, they don't have an iron. They don't have an iron in the studio this morning.
It's not wrinkled.
I'm used to seeing
well,
that
maybe
steamer.
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. By this time of day, Perk.
Yeah.
I've been going since 5:15 a.m.
16-17 and 2017-18, earning Finals MVP. As one of the most accomplished stars in the game, Russell Westbrook has already cemented his place in basketball history. But now, at 32 years old, he's struggling to prove he's still the same high-impact player he was in his prime, as his current tenure has been plagued with difficulty and disappointment, evidenced by LA's 5-5 record to start the season. In short, he just hasn't been a good fit, and it will be a major challenge for the team to figure out how to make it work. Worst of all, the Lakers had the chance to trade for Kyle Lowry and Buddy Hield instead. Their unwillingness to trade Talen Horton-Tucker is what ultimately led to the Westbrook trade. Before last season's trade deadline, the Lakers could have traded Dennis Schroeder, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Talen Horton-Tucker to Toronto for Kyle Lowry, but chose not to do so because they didn't want to lose Talen Horton-Tucker, wrote Reddit user Jack64467. If they did so, they could have signed Lowry to an extension, as he did want one if he was traded at the deadline. Instead, the Lakers let Schroeder walk in free agency, and traded Caldwell-Pope along with Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and a first-round pick to the Wizards for Russell Westbrook. Also, Kuzma and Harrell, but not Caldwell-Pope, were part of the trade package the Lakers would have sent to Sacramento in exchange for volume shooter Buddy Hield if the Lakers could not get Westbrook, so they could have had Buddy Hield along with Kyle Lowry if it wasn't for them wanting to keep Talen Horton-Tucker. One of the biggest issues with this Lakers team is their lack of shooters. Obviously, Lowry and Hield, two of the